Hi folks. Okay, moving right along with the Kenne Bell saga. If you would have caught my last video, you'd know that we put in most of a Snow Performance meth kit, okay? Now the reason I say most is I didn't want to completely button this up, and the reason being is I've got other accessories that need to be wired. A lot of that video was actually tucking wires in and under in my wheel well liner, or under the wheel well liner, and I've got more stuff that I need to wire up to the 12-volt stud that I put in the last video. Today's video, I'm going to be putting these contour electric fans in, and I believe I mentioned in the last video, but if I didn't, I'm going to be running these a little bit differently than on the last video where I installed contour fans on Project Revert. I'm going to show you some of the bits and pieces that I've got in order to wire this up and explain to you how we're going to do it before we jump in. Okay, here's the belle of the ball, the contour fans. Now I think everybody's seen these by now, or if you haven't, check out my contour van install on Project Revert. You're going to see me put these in too, but what you see is what you get. Now, what you're looking at here is a bunch of random stuff, but for the most part, this is LMR's full-blown contour fan wiring kit, mount kit, external coolant reservoir, their SVE Y block. It's got the Dakota digital controller, the whole 9 yards, in order to wire those fans up to work in your Fox. Now, I'm going to do something a little bit differently here. I'm going to leave the Dakota digital fan controller out of this install. And actually, a lot of the reason has to do with my friend in town needing that, which has allowed me to run down a little bit of a different road in controlling these fans that I want to try out. So what you see here is a thermostatic switch. So essentially what this thing does is when it senses 180, now I think this one's 185. When it senses 185 degrees, this prong gets a ground signal. Now what I'm going to be doing with this is I'm going to be running this to the ground side, the controller ground side of my relay. So a relay's got your sensor wire, your ground wire, and then your straight through power wire, your bigger power. This is going to tie into the ground side of my relay. So essentially that relay is going to be switched by ground. And this thing, if it works as it's intended to, will send that ground signal as soon as it senses the coolant hitting 185 degrees. I actually have 2 of these just in case one doesn't work like the other, like it's supposed to. I'm going to be, pulling them out and trying the other one too, because there are some reviews online that these things aren't necessarily as accurate as the manufacturer intends them to be. So I do have a backup. Now, as far as backups to that goes, I'm going to be hiding a manual switch under my dash, which will also be tied into this ground wire that I was just talking about, where I can manually ground that circuit and control the ground side or control the fans manually, right? Anytime I want, okay? If I get the sense that things are acting up real quick, I reach under the dash, hit my switch, bang, fans are on. I see this as a heck of a lot more simple system than depending on, and whatever, in this case it'd be the Dakota digital controller, but there's a lot of different fan controllers out there. I've had personally some hiccups with them, and I just see this as a way simpler way of getting these fans to do what you need them to do without all the dicking around with a controller. Now, another little piece of the puzzle here is obviously this whole circuit, the main power circuit that feeds the fans, needs to be fused. Well, I'm going to get rid of the fuses because, well, if you blow a fuse on the road and you don't have any in your console or your glove box, you're hooped. I'm going to be running 40 amp circuit breakers, 1 for each fan. So these will automatically, reset themselves. There's a whole chart here on the back of this package telling you how fast they reset and how much amperage they take to actually kick themselves over. I'm hoping that that will alleviate some roadside issues potentially if and when these things hit really hard, it's hot temps, wires are hot, and they kick those circuit breakers, they will reset themselves and turn back on. So this is something I want to try with this scenario. I don't think there's anything else crazy as far as that install goes. But that's how I'm going to be wiring those, folks. So stay tuned. I'll show you how I run all this. Another couple little bits and pieces of this puzzle are, this is my crank pulley. This is my water pump pulley, my stock crank and stock water pump pulley. My car, from being a teenage idiot, still has underdrive pulleys on it. So essentially I'm spinning my water pump way slower than I should be. And I don't want that to be the case anymore, especially with this blower going on it and everything else. So I'm going to be swapping those pulleys at the same time. And actually the crank pulley, why that is somewhat imperative is Kenne Bell has a whole chart on how to figure out how much boost you're actually running on paper through their blowers. And what it has to do with is not only this pulley size, it also is based off of the stock pulley size. So I'm just going to go to hell with all that underdrive stuff. I'm going back to stock. So I've got a decent baseline for figuring out what this thing actually should put out. If my calculations are correct, it should be somewhere in and around 10 to 12 pounds of boost. While this is all going on, I keep saying this in these videos, folks, but there are most likely going to be some other things that take place at the same time. I need to get this power steering bracket and pump moved down lower so I can get ready for the Vintage Air AC kit install and whatever. Start making some room for this Kenne Bell to finally drop on. Part of my wiring, I think I laid this out in the last video too, but my wiring tuck in the last video, I did run these wires. This is for that thermostatic switch, and it's also for my boost gauge. And what else? I think that's it. The manually switched wire that I talked about. Sorry, I'm a little all over the place, folks, but a lot of moving parts to this. And I say this a lot. I'm trying to like chronologically work my way through each and every one of these deals and not have to like run back over bridges that I've already crossed too many times. The old stuff's out here, ladies and gents. Still in good shape. Definitely going to go on the shelf in case I need it somewhere else. But the thing I wanted to show you here is if you've never seen a set of underdrive pulleys against a set of stock pulleys, here's the drastic difference. So here's the crank underdrive pulley. There's stock. That's the water pump underdrive pulley. There's stock. Right? Quite a difference. And like I well, at least attempted to tell you, the math that Kenne Bell uses in order to figure out how much boost you're going to be running through their blower with whatever pulley you're using is all based off of a math equation that accounts for the stock pulley size, stock pulley diameter. So I just figured, what the hell, let's go back to that, make my math easy. And again, I'm going to spin this water pump up a little quicker than this underdrive pulley was currently doing it. The other one you can do too, in case anybody's never shared this intel with you, is the 93 Cobra water pump pulley is a little bit smaller than even the OEM pulley. If you're running into some cooling issues, that's another slick little old school workaround, but we're going to be going back to the stock one in this case and stock crank pulley. All right, one more pulley thing to show you here, folks. So this is a aftermarket smog pump delete pulley, okay? This is one of two versions that I'm aware of. This is the non-Ford version. You can get a Ford part numbered one. And this has been on my car for quite some time. The plan was to take it off and just be done with any kind of pulley down in that bottom corner during this whole ordeal. But check this out. See if I can do this with one hand. This thing is absolutely shot. It wasn't making any noise or showing any sign, well, I guess other than the back side of it here. You can see that bearing's pretty much wiped out, all the grease is out of it, but yeah, pretty wild. Who knows how many more miles were on this thing. That could have left me in a world of hurt, but I take a lot of heat, actually. It's mixed reviews on my smog pump delete video. A lot of people, you know, just say, hey, to hell with it, you know, just get a new belt, pack an extra. And then there's other folks that see the value in just running an OEM size belt. Well, anyway, this guy, I don't know if it's just a bad one or maybe this, you know, aftermarket rig is just not built as good, but I do have one of the Ford ones on the convertible. Haven't noticed any issues with it, but anyway, I guess buyer beware. I keep talking about the chronological unfolding of this whole debacle I'm embarking upon, and I decided to open up one of the vintage air boxes. Now the reason being is that condenser needs to live in front of my radiator, and I kind of opened a can of worms. I figured, you know, I'd just be bolting this thing in real quick. I could lean my rad forward and move on. Well, turns out it's a little more involved than that. The dryer goes up there, all kinds of lines, hoses, whatever. So I started looking at all this and I went, well, maybe we'll forget about this for a minute and we'll just go to the wiring portion of the fans. So that's what I've been doing here, and it's quite honestly been kind of more thinking and planning and laying things out than anything. So I've just got the contour fans draped in there off one of the tabs that I've got to cut off of there. But just wanted to kind of set them in place and get a feel for where they were going to sit and everything. And then I will poke you up here. So all I've really done is I've ran my power wire and my circuit breakers that I spoke on earlier. Now, a lot of you may be going, why the hell did you go to all the trouble to tuck those wires when all you're doing is busying the inner apron of your engine bay up with all of these circuit breakers, fuses, whatever? Well, this is all I'm going to run on this side of the fender well, okay? And the reason I'm running this stuff over here is I want to be able to access it quickly and easily on the road if need be. Ideally, I'd love to have this stuff tucked up in the wheel well, behind the wheel well liner, but yeah, I just don't see it as being very realistic for serviceability if you find yourself in a oh beep moment, right? So what I got here essentially is, this is my fuel pump, the bigger wire that I ran for my fuel pump that I'm now running, did a video on that, and my 2 fan relay, pardon me, not relays, don't know if I was calling those relays, but circuit breakers. And those are going to go down to the fan relays, which are going to be, well, somewhat hidden under here. But I think I'm going to mount these guys on the rad support. So kind of hard to see, but up in front of the snow performance pump. And yeah, lots going on under here. And I'm just going to get after like kind of putting things in place and what have you. And then we're going to go to wiring these relays up. These 2 wires here are going to be my 12-volt source wire to turn the relay on. And the other one is my ground signal that's going to come off that thermostatic switch. And it's also going to be controlled from my manual switch in the cab. More on that later. Folks, so relays are, well, technically in. I just gotta tie my feed wire into my fans, but I still need to kind of trim and whatever, get the tabs off of these fans and put the mounts on them and what have you, and then run the ground off the other side of the plug. But for whatever reason, I felt the need to kind of jump in the cab here and figure out where I want to mount my switch. And now obviously well, maybe not obvious, but it is obvious to me, I don't want to drill any holes in my dash. So what I'm thinking of doing is utilizing the fuse block mount here, right? That tin piece, which they're recreating those, so I don't feel too bad drilling a hole in my original one. I should maybe run the damn thing through the sandblaster. Man, these things get all oxidized up. But anyway, I've loosened this off just to kind of get a sense for what and where and how I would mount this switch. And what I'm thinking of doing is mounting it right here. So essentially, this guy will live right in there. So I'm going to pop this out. Well, it's already kind of popped out. And there you go, buddy. Essentially, give you a little bit better view. I think I'm going to go right here with it. Nice little spot there. Drill my hole, drop my switch through, wire it up, and then I've got my manual control to turn my fans on and off. And again, this is going to be a ground switch. Okay, so no power running through this. Essentially, it's just going to close the loop between a ground signal. So my wire on this end coming from inside the engine compartment and going to that thermostatic switch, and then the other end's just going to be tied to a ground underneath the dash here on the dash frame, most likely the stud that's over here by the radio. So pretty down and dirty, clears the fuse block and everything, and pretty inconspicuous too, right? If you didn't know what it was or where to look, I don't even think you'd know it was there. It's maybe a little bigger than what I wanted, but you know what, it's fairly utilitarian, very tactile, right? You know you're using this switch when you use it. Quick final look at the switch here, guys. So that's where she'll live. Reach down, feel for your fuse panel, bango, there it is. And I mean, in theory, you don't even really know it's there, right? Nice and tucked away, but just enough action on her there to be able to grab it on command. Anything else to update you on? Oh, I got bored and kind of tried this out with my buddy, good buddy, Matthew Puzzi, Tech Motion. This is his gauge pod. Man, these things are sweet. Absolutely beauty when you don't want to run like an A-pill or gauge pod or whatever. So that's going to live in there. And I got thinking about it. I mean, with this gauge being digital and my AirTech gauges for my air ride are also digital, should actually look pretty cool in here. It's going to be like a Foxtoberfest brewery night in the cab. Alright guys, so I've been horsing around here mounting these LMR universal mounts. Pretty slick little system, and kind of going in and out of the car a couple of times, just sort of seeing what I'm dealing with, because anytime I've ever put these in, depending on what type of rad you got, it's always a little bit of fabrication involved. So to be honest with you, I can't even remember what rad this car has in it. It's been so long, and I bought it from Western Motorsports in Calgary, big old 4-core, good rad, but again, could not tell you who manufactures it. But anyway, what I'm coming to find out is I've got some real estate on both sides of my fans. My rad's bigger than my fan setup, so that needs to be considered. And also, you can see how, you know, you've got a bit of a gap here, okay? Like right here, based on how these LMR mounts angle and whatnot, and that leaves you with a gap between your rad and your fans. And the whole idea behind a fan setup / shroud is you want a tight seal between your rad and your fans, so you're pulling as much air through that radiator as possible. Well, I was thinking to myself the other night, I'm like, maybe I could use some like 1/4-inch hose and get that in there, and it would work if you cut it, you know, down, I've actually got some 1/4-inch hose sitting here. So, you know, if you just ran a slice down one side of it and kind of pushed it down and hooked it over the corner of this thing. But that is not going to clean up the gap that I have. I've got probably 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. So what I got laying here is actually a trunk seal. And this, I can't remember if it's leftover or maybe I just had it as spare, whatever. Anyway, this I kind of test fit on there a little bit. I haven't cut anything, but I tried it on and it is going to clean up my gap and then some and give me a tight seal against my rad. So what I'm going to do is, well, put this on just like you're putting it on a like a trunk, and I'm gonna run it along that channel and seal it all up. I'll maybe get this trimmed and put in place, and then I'll show you guys the final result. But I'm sure I'm not the only one that's ever thought of doing this, but I just kind of went through my parts upstairs in the mezzanine and went, I think this will work. Not bad, right? That'll clean up that gap nicely and seal this unit against the rad. Here's a quick look at that seal. The trunk's repurposed trunk seal works like a hot damn. That's gonna really help with pulling that much more air through that rad. So pretty excited about that. Now, next steps. These fans do need to be wired officially to the relay, but again, because the fans are gonna come in and out a couple times, I mean, I could unplug them right off the fan, but I kind of want all that wiring to be loomed and tucked away and somewhat hidden. So I don't think I'm going to bother tying those fans into the relays quite yet. We do have to run that thermostatic switch that I talked about at the start of the video off that SVE Y block, but I don't know if I'm going to do that quite yet either, because the intake's coming off so the Kenne Bell can go on, right? So I might hang tough on that. Again, I'm sorry folks. Some of these videos are going to be a real mix match of stuff because you can really only get like 90% of one project done before you have to move on to the next. And that's kind of where I'm at here right now. So the SVE overflow, rad overflow tank, you know, should live somewhere in this region, but I do have to start moving accessories around, i.e. the power steering pump needs to go down so the AC compressor can come up here. I do have a thought. Chris and I, the Infamous Project, have been talking about this on the podcast, potentially trying to find a way to mount that AC compressor down where the smog pump used to be, which would be a sweet setup, but I have a feeling there's going to take it's going to take a bunch of fabrication and manufacturing to make that a reality. So most likely power steering pump's going down, AC compressor's coming up here, and Kenne Bell actually has some bracketry. This guy here, right? So tensioner, this is where your AC compressor would live. This is the front kind of stabilization of the snout on the Kenne Bell, right? Kind of goes up here and ties it all into the accessory drive. All that stuff needs to, well, pretty much start going in now so I can finish up like my overflow tank and know that it's gonna live in a place that's not gonna interrupt anything else. So stand by folks. I think we're gonna start moving some of these accessories around and then we'll see where we're at.
Put the needle on the record.
Well, that was short-lived. So I'm in the middle of tearing my power steering pump off and everything, and I'm like, oh yeah, right, where are my brackets for this AC unit? Well, I can't find the brackets for that air conditioning compressor at all. I've turned my shop upside down. I'm going through bins, I'm going through boxes. I can't find anything. I don't know. And then I'm like, okay, whatever, right? Let's just keep moving forward. I'll jump on LMR. I know they've got a kit, $100 kit or something. And turns out they're sold out for the next like month and a half, 2 months. So that's interesting. Anyway, I've got an SOS post out on social media going like, hey, anybody got these AC brackets? I'm in like dire straits. It's kind of slowing down progress here. I mean, I could just start tearing into the air conditioning now, which I probably will. I guess partially, the bit of the air conditioning that I can do, condenser, dryer, all that stuff. And I am dreading tearing the dash out of this thing, I'm not going to lie to you. But I guess I could get moving forward with that. I didn't want to get too many projects on the go at one time. I'd like to have things like as close to done as possible. And here we are. Well, I don't know, folks. I think I might just leave this one here as a to be continued, and I will show you the rest of the stuff as I guess the videos progress, right? But the only thing I left out of this video was that thermostatic switch that I showed you at the start. That's going to go up in the heater tube in that SVY block, and well, sending power and ground to my fans. Other than that, there's my electric fan install for you. I'll obviously do like a full sweep recap once all this stuff's in, and probably overlay some of this video in it so you can like have one place to go and access all this information, if there's any information in here that you think is valuable. But my apologies, ladies and gents. This is just the reality of my situation today. If you're heartbroken, trust me, I'm 10 times that. So anyway, I guess we'll leave her there. I'm going to start cleaning up all this junk I got torn all over the place trying to find brackets, and I don't know, maybe start on this AC. So anyway, folks, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate each and every one of you. If you think there's anything in this video that might have helped someone out there, one of your friends, the Foxbody community, please share it along. That's why I do the videos, to try to give back. So thanks a lot for watching. Catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye for now.